And now let's move to the story. And it's to do with the airlines. No information can be provided on SAA's deal with Takatso at the moment because it's at a very sensitive stage. This is the message from the Public Enterprises Department. They were in Parliament speaking to the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. The Takatso consortium has been picked as a strategic equity partner to take a 51% chunk of the national carrier. eNCA's Heidi Giokos joins us now. Hello, Heidi. So obviously the big talking point was the fact that Gidon Novick, who's part of Takatso, one of the minority shareholders, but playing a key role, has said he's pulling back from that key role. What did the Public Enterprises Minister say?
Yes, so I think today we were all waiting and expecting to hear exactly where that Takatso deal is and at what stage it's at. One must remember that this deal was signed 18 months ago, and everybody was hoping that this strategic equity partner would take South African Airways to higher levels and not make it so dependent on the government fiscus. However, the Public Enterprises Minister Pravin Gordhan before Scopa today said that they cannot give any information, any sort of information, because it is at a sensitive stage. He did allude to the fact that the deal is still on the table, and should Takatso not come forward with the money that is required, nobody knows how much is required, they would, if they don't come up with the money, then the deal is off. However, Scopa was not very pleased with the fact that no information could be provided. One must remember that SAA is still a public entity. It still needs to account before Parliament, before Scopa. South Africans have every right to know what's going on with SAA, given the fact that it's taxpayers' money at the end of the day. And it just seems as though that there is no end in sight, and there's just no information that can come out because it's in a closed period. And I think the question here is, when was it ever in an open period? Because we've never had any sort of information when it comes to Takatso. Every time we've inquired and asked, we've been told it's at a very sensitive stage. The minister also saying it's got a lot to do with secrecy, and given there's a lot of competitiveness in the market, but that really doesn't factor in here, because if you look at what's happening domestically with aviation, there is no competition for SAA at this stage. SAA has an opportunity to thrive here. But anyway, let's listen to what the minister had to say about that.
Whilst this is a government entity currently, it operates within a competitive industry. And that industry has become even more competitive now, subsequent to the collapse of a key player within the aviation industry. And in such an environment, you have players with reasonably strong elbows and weak elbows who will attempt to gain advantage of one kind or another in such a commercial environment, as any competitor would do in the retail industry, in the IT industry, or whatever the case might be. And so, when we talk about the closed period, it is that context which must be kept in mind.
Seems he's possibly alluding to Gidon Novick, who of course has a private aviation company, Lift, but it was known before Gidon Novick came in as part of the consortium that he was running Lift. So why would it be a conflict of interest at this stage? Gidon Novick also criticising the fact that there's not much information. Interestingly, though, I thought what Pravin Gordhan said about Gidon Novick may have pulled back as a director, but he still remains a shareholder. And Pravin Gordhan saying, well, if he thought it was such a bad deal, he'd have pulled out completely. Talk to me about what you were able to glean on where the deal is at.
Yes, I think the big issue here is the fact that there are already red flags. If you have a director deciding to resign from Takatso, that shows you that there's something possibly wrong. The minister's saying, though, that there is nothing wrong, and it's not a big issue. He basically called the resignation small and minor, and he said that the deal is still on the table. He's also alluded to the fact that again, Sally, very little information came out. So it's very difficult to really understand where this deal is and if this deal is still going to happen. But the minister is saying the deal is still on the table, and it still stands that Takatso will take 51% and government will take the 49%. Of course, the money needs to come forward for the SCP to take over that 51% of SAA. Whether or not it's going to be Takatso, we still don't know. It seems as though it is still going to be, but unfortunately we do not know the finer details, which I think South Africans are entitled to know, and especially before SCOPA. But let's listen to the minister again on where the deal is at.
For over a year, some 18 months, this deal has been talked about in vague terms, and again we hear today the sort of high-level things that we've all heard before, but we don't get anything about the detail. And on top of that, Mr. Chairman, even the CEO of Takatso yesterday says he doesn't know what's going on. So my first question then is, who has Public Enterprises been speaking to in the Takatso consortium if it has excluded the CEO of that consortium? Put aside his directorship, but as I understand it, he was a CEO. So how can you speak to an entity and not speak to the CEO? Who were you talking to?
So that would, of course, SCOPA. Pravin
Yes. Gordhan
answering, saying, first of all, Gideonovic is not the CEO, he is a director. It's up to Takatso to discuss amongst themselves. So really not taking on anything that was said by Gideonovic. Just, Heidi, where are we financially with SAA? Did you get any clarity today?
That's a very good question. I wish I had the answer to that, Sally. Again, we don't have any clarity on this, and SCOPA really pushing and saying we need to understand the financials. Just for quick context, when SAA went into business rescue back in 2019, there was money that was allocated for that business rescue process, and that was given by government. There was 2 billion rand that was given to SAA for operational purposes to come out of business rescue and to be able to function. SCOPA says it seems and it appears as though SAA is trying to survive on that 2 billion rand, because operationally, when you look at things, it doesn't really look like SAA is making money. They also don't have aircraft. They have about 7 aircraft. They are not flying as they were before, especially on the African continents, even internationally. And SCOPA is saying, how are you surviving? And it seems as though, again, we are not being told exactly how they are surviving and where the money is coming from.
So it may be at a sensitive stage, this deal, but we need to hear answers quickly because time is ticking on and money is running out.
out.
Thank you very much, Heidi Giokos.